Hello everyone, we are TrekDevs here. This is Project Milestone 2 and my name is Akshay. Uh, my role and responsibility was mainly for the school's data set that we had. The idea was that if an area or area has more number of schools, better schools, uh, the quality of the locality is increased. So we have different attributes for every school's, mainly their contact information and some of the quality attributes. Some of the interesting ones would be the full-time teacher count and the enrollment number in the schools. The full-time teacher count generally indicates how big the school is and whether the government is actually paying attention to these schools. Similarly, the enrollment attribute also tells us about whether there are actually people going to the school, which indicates if it is good or not. We have linked it with the zip code so that we can identify the quality of locality based on this. Thank you.
Next, I can talk about the air quality data. So the idea is we want some data set to reflect the air quality of different geolocation, like in different state and county. We also link this to our main data set with zip code. And the most important attribute in the air quality data set is a air quality index. It's calculated by the US Environment Protection Agency. So it's a integer from 0 to 200. The more, like, the higher the number is the worse the air condition is in that area. And it also has different measure of air pollutions, like for example, NO2, SO2, and like PM 2.5. So that's some detailed measure of air pollution. Yeah, I think that's for my part.
Awesome, thanks. So I'm Neil, and I was in charge of doing the density for the population and housing, and basically this is a really good idea for, you know, if you're interested in living in a city or somewhere that is super heavily populated with people, or densely populated, it's nice to know and like be able to aggregate that. Or if you're not quite as into people and you want to be spread out or away from people, it's nice to be able to see, based on your location and zip codes. Also, you know, it tells you how many housing units there are in a per square mile area. So if there's a bunch of schools nearby and you have a nice densely populated area, maybe that's your thing. It's also got some extra information about how the area is divided. So if you happen to be into maybe boating or something and you wanted a lot of water in the area, there's data for how much water is per square mile in that city or that location. So there's a lot of good stuff to check out. So that's about it.
Cool. And hi, this is Peter. I had, I guess I was tasked with the incidents table, and that really has to do, that's really focused on homicide incidents. So clearly one can use this table to sort of identify, or at least take a look at sort of the number of, or the trends in terms of homicides in a particular area, and use that as an additional factor in making their choice. Some people may want a place with more homicides. Others may others may want a place with less. So it all depends on what floats your boat there.
We shouldn't judge anyone.
Yeah, I think overall it was we were all able to create our tables pretty much individually, and then we relied on the zip code table to, I guess, kind of, you know, pull all the data together. We do have Amy Kong was not able to be with us at this particular point in the recording, and she'll be doing a separate recording, and then she'll put it all together for us. So we thank you for that, Amy. I think I've pretty much run out of things to say. Anybody have anything else they'd like to add?
Yeah, one thing I forgot to mention. So all the data that we have loaded into the database, we used in-file statements in SQL itself in Workbench. So we did not have to use the menus to load the data. There were some fields which already had commas inside them, which caused few issues for us while loading the data. For such files, we had to replace the commas with either spaces or any other appropriate characters, which we did. One problem that we faced was of charset, as some of the alphabet characters were Latin, so we had to change the charset for the data for the schema also.
Hey everyone. So I was in charge of the hospital dataset, and the reason why we decided to incorporate the hospital data in our project is because when looking at an area to live in, it is important that you have ease to healthcare and doctor offices and emergency visits that are conveniently located close by if it is a priority for someone, say for an older user or a patient with a specific medical condition that needs to be assisted with. And in the hospital data table, it identifies the type of hospital it is, whether it's a children's hospital, a critical care hospital, or a psychiatric hospital. And it also identifies if they have emergency services or not, and that is noted with a true or false in the data set. And we also have an attribute that gives the overall rating of the hospital, which is just on a numeric scale. And then we have many different attributes that are scaled on from below average to above average, and that is compared with the national rating of other hospitals. So that's kind of subjective. And some of the other attributes include the mortality, safety, also the readmission of patients in the hospital, the patient experience, the effectiveness of care, the timeliness of the care, and the efficiency of the medical imaging use. And these attributes, they're important in the hospital data table because it validates the integrity of the hospital when a user is looking at the hospitals around the area. And the safety of the hospital is also important. We would want a hospital that practices safe, sterile habits and procedures. And the patient experience is also an important thing to consider because a long wait time or an upsetting visit wouldn't be good either. And along with the other tables mentioned, the hospital table is linked with the zip. Well, that is it for our second milestone of the TrekDevs project, and in the end, after this, I will also include a whole screenshot of what our whole entire UML diagram model looks like with all of the other tables.